Hello, everyone, and welcome to Base Conversations, the Fire Emblem YouTube interview show that I do. My name is Pandan, and today I'm joined by the creator of The Heroes We Deserve, a reliable chair. Chair, say hello.
Hello.
Well, thanks again for making the time to do this. I know we planned on doing this interview, gosh, probably like over 6 months ago now, and it's just kind of been um, a bit difficult for us to get time on the calendar. We're about 4 hours difference in time zone, roughly, uh, and we work different schedules. So I'm glad that we were able to make this work.
Yeah, we kept pushing it off and pushing it off until eventually it was like, you know what? Why don't we just wait till it's done?
Yeah,
And then,
yeah. It's not every day. This is a very rare treat, share, insofar that you're one of the few people that can say you've actually finished a ROM hack and finishing a ROM hack that doesn't suck. So that's another notch in your belt. The Heroes We Deserve is great. I think it's gotten a lot of praise for what it does. The gameplay, the humor, the art. There's quite a lot to enjoy and unpack. So very excited to be chatting with you about that today.
yeah, I never thought we'd be here. Uh, I thought it was just gonna, just go by the wayside and just be forgotten. But turns out people kind of like it,
Yeah,
which
what
is
was it?
nice.
What I saw, I think you posted not too long ago that someone actually started doing like a 0% LTC run or something like that of your hack. That's when you know you've made
Yeah,
it.
it's a 100% LTC run,
Mm.
and it skips all the dialogue. There's zero audio, and it's terrible. I
That's
watched, I watched 2 episodes.
hilarious. But it's definitely surreal when you build something, and it's one thing when like you see people play it and like give you feedback, and that's kind of like why they're playing it. But then to just see other people who you don't know pick it up and then play it and post it somewhere, and you're kind of like, oh, this is my stuff. How does that feel for you?
It's surprising, like every time. A couple months ago, Kark, Mr. Kark,
Hmm.
I guess that's how you pronounce it. He helped out a lot in the earlier phases. He showed me a screenshot of a Pokemon server that where someone shared like a screenshot of Thwood because there's a Bidoof in it. I was like, wow, every corner of the internet. All right, cool.
There you go, dude. You're making it. You're crossing borders. You're blurring the lines between video game communities. That's really funny. But so kind of alluding to your point, like the early days. Let's dial it back a little bit. Let's talk about just how'd you get into Fire Emblem? Like, what was your introduction? I know you and I are around the same age, so I'm curious to hear how you learned about the series and how you got involved.
So it all starts with Smash Bros. Naturally.
Classic.
Uh, you see the two sword guys. One guy has a flaming sword, super cool. Well, more on him later. Then eventually, a cousin of mine, older cousin, he told us about it, told us about the actual series. Say us,
Hmm.
my cousin Steve,
Hmm.
one of the Thwed members, and we got into it. He told us to play Fire Emblem 8 first because it was easier.
Hmm.
Um, I remember really loving Joshua, made him a sword master naturally.
Classic.
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty much how I got into it.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I would say I had a pretty similar experience there as well. So would you say that, given that FE8 was your first Fire Emblem, would you say it's your favorite, or what was your favorite, or what is your favorite, I should say?
Um, can I just say the Tellius series?
Yeah, of
Like those
course.
two games. Like I really like the. I'm not big on story in Fire Emblem games, in
Hmm.
case you couldn't tell. But it was just a lot of fun, like with the diverse cast, the Lagoos, yada yada, bonus experience. Like it was fairly different from the GBA games.
Yeah, I remember for me, like I felt very similarly. Like the Telus games added so much, and then they went to Shadow Dragon. And it's like wow, like they stripped down a lot when that game came out. So totally get it.
Yeah, I've
Go ahead.
never played Shadow Dragon.
I like it. It's something that like when I first played it as a kid, like, following up from Radiant Dawn, which as you said, like there's all these features, it's a huge cast, and then you go to something like very stripped down, it really feels like such a downgrade. But now when I go back and play it, and have like a greater appreciation for like higher difficulty, it's really fun. I would say it's one of my favorite games to play Iron Man, but totally get that it's not for everyone. And so, but I also think it's funny that you say that your story is not a big part, but I feel like Tellius, both games get praised very often for their characters and dialogue. So I find it interesting that you lean into the gameplay elements there.
Yeah, I was more interested in like the whole like Black Knight thing instead of like the whole overarching story. Like that was what kept me paying attention to the dialogue.
Yeah, the rivalry between Ike and the Black Knight and just how that all plays out, I think, is really unique and very memorable across the series. So yeah, I totally see that. Um, and then so eventually, you play some Fire Emblem. You like the series enough to go online and talk about it. How did you get into ROM hacking? What was your intro experience to this world?
So um, I had known hacking was a thing. Actually, most people do, but what actually happened was I was bored and I wanted to delve into other YouTube channels,
Mm-hmm.
and I randomly stumbled upon Mags. I was like, "Oh, Fire Emblem, I love that!" And eventually, like a few weeks later, he released a video where it's a hack where his friends are trying to escape a dungeon or something,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, "Wow, that's pretty cool." It's like playing D&D and Fire Emblem. I love both of these things. I need to do this. And then eventually, a couple Google searches later, I find Seren's Forest, the hacking scene. I find find FEU, and then I just got to dive headfirst into it. Zero experience, zero research, just boom, FE Builder.
Nice. And so did you immediately start then with the heroes we deserve, or did you do something else first before starting with this concept?
So at first, I was thinking of what my project would be,
Mm-hmm.
and I had it down to either my friends in real life, but were kind of assholes, or just taking a D&D campaign that I had played, that I had ran, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And said campaign, like we played it over the span of like 3 years.
Oh wow.
Uh, yeah, it was two and a half ish, give or take.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it has a wide variation of races. So like, there's no gnome animations in Fire Emblem, and I didn't know people made custom ones at the time. So I'm like, oh man, do I just make everybody human? That would be kind of boring.
Mm-hmm.
So then I just went with Plan B. My friends, but we're all assholes.
My friends, but we're all assholes. So uh, when it came to that, like, how did you? So one of the things I think that people remember the heroes we deserve for, besides just like its humor and writing, and you kind of touch on that with saying like our friends, but we're assholes. What was kind of the thought behind like the premise of the split units? I know you've joked that it's like part four of Radiant Dawn, but I'm curious kind of how that came about and became such a defining aspect of the project.
We're actually in geographically we're actually in three different geographic locations. Four if you count the pre-promotes that come later on.
Oh, that's funny.
So yeah, so us actually meeting up is us actually meeting up. It's not just done arbitrarily.
Okay, that's cool. That's a good way to do gameplay story integration with real life. I love it. And so, as you were building this out, chair, like what was your design philosophy? Were there certain things from games that you really liked from a gameplay sense, things you wanted to emulate, or things you just wanted to avoid that kind of helped shape what you made?
Um, Things I'd like to avoid. Arenas. Arenas are bad. They, I don't like them. Um, Other design philosophy choices. I kind of I Okay, we have to dial it back a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So Thread has been rewritten like twice, and in the first version, it was planned to be like 27 chapters long,
Mm-hmm.
and the bosses were all just like mundane people aside from Roy. Like in chapter 3, you'd fight the janitor,
Mm-hmm.
just the dumbest crap ever. And then I scrapped that idea and decided to make it a community thing so people could submit their characters as bosses.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And then eventually I was speaking with Arch, and he was like, man, okay, 27 chapters is too long for a joke hack. You should probably cut it down. People are going to get sick of it after a while. And then like I decided to go with that, and like I didn't touch the ROM in like a month.
Hmm.
I was just thinking, okay, how am I gonna? What am I gonna do? Am I gonna condense this? Like a bunch of people giving me their characters, you know, like I can't. I feel like a dick move if I cut them out.
Sure.
So what I did was I tried to make shorter but more memorable chapters instead of making a bunch of mediocre ones.
Very cool. So yeah, that's why there's like chapters with like multiple bosses and things like that, was to pretty much do good by all those folks who submitted characters.
Yeah, exactly.
Very cool. And so when it came to actually building the project, so being, I know you've said this before, like when you're a project lead, you need to be a generalist. What was your process for building the hack, kind of end to end? Just like, how did you get started, go through it? What did what was your order of operations, so to speak?
Yeah, so after like poking around Builder for a little bit, and then when I decided upon the idea, step one is start up a spreadsheet. You know,
Mm-hmm.
there's the characters. Then I found out the skill system existed. I spent, I don't know, like 2 days just figuring out like what kind of skills I want the characters to have, especially like their personal skills and how it would synergize.
Mm-hmm.
Because making the characters feel fun to use is something you can do. Like you don't even need like stats and weapons and stuff. Like skills can do that for you if you just that's the word I'm looking for here. Yeah, I guess like synergize.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you could find
Um,
find ways to make the skills
mhm.
work to complement the stats to make them feel unique.
Yeah. Then like after that, I just made a boatload of maps. I
Mm-hmm.
made like 30 something maps. It's like it was complete and utter chaos at the
Mm-hmm.
beginning, and
Sure.
then yeah, I hadn't even delved into music insertion at that point. It was just stick with the vanilla tracks. Very minimal playtesting early on.
Mm-hmm.
Like I fell into that horrible designing pitfall, and the game was very boring and very easy at that point. Like the very first chapter, you just have Dominic, Bianca, and Chester,
Mm-hmm.
and at this point, Bianca didn't even have access to light magic at tier one.
Okay.
So you'd have all these guys, and you'd just attack with Dominic, dance, attack with Dominic, and then till everybody was dead. Am I rambling right now? I feel like I'm
No,
rambling.
no, you're
No.
no. This is I asked a very big question. Um, I mean,
Hmm.
the Heroes of Deserve, what it's taken you about 2 years, start to finish. So that's a lot of process to break down.
Um, yeah. So eventually, uh, when I got my shit together, I guess what we can call that, and like actually got people to volunteer to play test and stuff, there was a feedback loop.
Mm-hmm.
I remember specifically Bloopy played after like the the final rewrite started, right?
Yep.
I released, I think it was the first 6 chapters, and Bloopy gave me like a massive wall of text of feedback,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, okay, good, good. Somebody like cares enough about this to like sit down and write it up, write up what they think about it, and then with your videos, it's like getting your reactions in real time and like your commentary in real time, and then go back redo. No, I don't want to say redo, but like tweak everything again, and then you get this feedback loop, and then after that you can uh, you can kind of get a feel for it. So like for the later chapters,
Mm-hmm.
there's not necessarily going to be as much feedback because the foundation of the earlier chapters kind of set the stage for the rest of it. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think it's fair to say that like if you can get the early chapters right and like start the balance off good, unless you do something really drastic like how TLP just like makes like a crazy freaking like enemy quality spike at the end. Like if you kind of keep consistent with your curve, you start off strong. I think it's a lot easier to kind of continue on that right path, especially given the Thwud is what it's 15 chapters, and so that's like not like long enough where what happens in chapter I feel like some games, like I've run into this with my own stuff where it's like, all right, like the first 12 chapters are solid, but then like I still have like another like, 18 to go. You know, there's a lot of room for error, but like in a shorter hack, like I think it's a lot easier to kind of stay on that right path, because the numbers aren't going to go up like super high or super crazy.
Actually, they do. Um, if you dissect the hack, um, most characters can be in up to 7 chapters,
Mm-hmm.
whereas the characters you get later will be up to 4. So it's not even really 15 chapters. It's like 3 different hacks going on that all kind of merge later on. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And because I wanted like the later game to feel like a later game and end game feel like an end game chapter, we ended up multiplying experience by 1.5 across the board.
Oh, that's right. I
Um,
remember that.
yeah, thanks to Snakey's ASM. He also did daggers,
Mm-hmm.
which is really cool. Um, what else was I going to say on that? Oh yeah, enemy stats actually do get inflated, even from the very beginning. Like enemies get like a +1 and a bunch of things, and eventually it goes up to like a +4.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like you'll face like level 20 unpromoted enemies with like 20s in some of their stats, for example.
Sure.
But that's kind of compensated because when I was dealing with skill distribution, I was only taking the player characters in mind, so I didn't really like care about the enemy's skills, so they just kind of got whatever.
Sure. Based on like the class decisions that you made for the classes that the player units were.
Yeah, at the time, I don't think you were able to do like skills for characters as opposed to just skills for classes.
Oh yeah. Are you saying like you weren't able to do like player unit specific skill sets not set at the class level? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah, and that's and I think that's like an interesting point you raised as well around just like how you design your hack. And I think when you're starting, it's really easy to think about the players first because it's like one, it's super fun. Like, oh, I have these player characters, I want them to do these things, so I'm gonna design them as such, and do the enemies later. I found that for me, like I did the same thing when I started, but I found that like as I've gone on, I think taking like an enemy first approach kind of helps work out some problems earlier, but there's no like right or wrong way to go about doing it. It's all about like the end result. So it's interesting like kind of how everyone arrives there a little differently.
Hmm. Yeah, like for the bosses, the people who submitted their characters would just give me like a little description,
Mm-hmm.
and then I would just kind of eyeball their stats from there, and never really had to nerf or buff many of them.
Yeah,
Just kind of worked out.
sure. And you didn't have like a super mathematical process for determining enemy stats. You kind of just went by feel.
Yeah, the only time I really took math into consideration was character bases and growths.
Sure.
Uh, yeah, it's like everybody had 300% total growths.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember what the total was for bases. That didn't work. Turns out not all stats are equal. Um, so like in the final update, like a lot of the characters that underperformed late game, like a lot of them got buffs to
Mm-hmm.
their growth rates, and some to their bases. But yeah, um, don't just give everybody the same amount of the same percentage growth across the board. It's not going to work.
Yeah, that's a really good lesson there. And I think I've definitely fallen into that trap. I see it all the time when talking to people who are starting. It's like, oh, I want like this percent around for everyone. And it's like, well, if you have 300% and you're putting 50 of that into luck in one unit and like 10% luck into the other unit, I'd wager that if it really depends on where you're putting those growth rates. Because like not
Yeah,
none of not is like you said, not all stats are equal.
yeah, exactly. So lesson learned. Um, I don't really know what to do with that aside from tell people because it's not like I'm gonna make another hack.
Fair enough. So when it comes to hacking, like what's been your favorite part? It sounds like I know you said Carkino helped out early on, but I know it was like pretty heavily a solo effort for the beginning, at least on like the core dev pieces. What was your favorite part of building it?
I was my own boss, so like I could work on whatever I wanted.
Hmm.
If I wanted to spend a whole weekend making maps, a bit of an exaggeration, but yeah, nothing
Sure.
was stopping me, you know.
Hmm.
And
But
then later on, like when I found when I learned how to do music insertion, like I would spend just hours just looking for songs.
oh yeah, I've been there too. So would you say that like map making and music probably like your top two favorite things to do in like the hack building process?
Um, Probably just the music,
Yeah,
because I'm no good at maps. Like I can't do peaks. Pretty well every map I made, somebody had to fix something on it.
sure.
Um, yeah, I fell into like the pitfall of making like straight paths and yeah, the bad map design in general.
Yeah. No, I get it. I mean, I think there's the two elements, right? There's the aesthetic piece, and then there's like the gameplay piece. And I feel like when you're new, it's definitely kind of hard to get both right. And I think the aesthetic part is harder because like the tile sets can just be really unwieldy to work with when you're brand new, and it's easy to kind of make those like very straight boxy paths and things like that when you're just like I don't really know how to do this exactly. So I can appreciate that.
Hmm.
Um,
Um, Eventing was fine. Like
yeah.
I see a lot of people kind of complain about it, but
Hmm.
sure it's like slow in builder, but like so is inserting text. It's just something I have accepted.
Yep.
But especially like near the end, like in the final chapter, I went like all out in the start event, and kind of so in the end event. But yeah, eh, there's no part that like I actively disliked doing. I think that's what I want to say.
Yeah, that's fair. And I definitely want to call out like I think the quality of the eventing that you've done in Thwud is some of the best I've seen in any ROM hack. I think it's one of those things that's like really hard to get right. And I break down eventing into like two categories. There's like the eventing to do like cool gameplay stuff like split decisions or recruitment events or like anything gameplay oriented. And then there's also just like the cinematography of the ROM hack as well. And I think Thwud has like really top notch like presentation in that regard. So kudos to you for that. And I know how long that could take to build.
Yeah, it took a while. The the start and end events before were pretty bare bone.
Hmm.
Like the load map dialogue, enemies go, and then eventually eat more colorful stuff.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think it's a good lesson there too, right? Like it's okay to have kind of bare bones stuff to start just to like keep on moving, and then you could always go back and add more flourish later on once you kind of see what the feedback is. And so that actually kind of brings me to my next question. Just on like the reception of the hack. So, Mangs played it, and I remember that day in your server where just like a flood of people joined the server, and it was just like a very wild thing to see. Just like how like one video going up like completely like doubled the size of your server like in a couple hours, which was really insane. How was that experience like having? I think it's something that gets talked about a lot. Like I know it comes up in like my server sometimes, and just like on FEU in general. It's like, oh, what do we, what happens when like your hack gets like LP'd by someone who is well known and popular, and people start to like know about your hack outside of like the little circles of people that build hacks and do nothing else. How's that experience been like?
We dubbed that the Mang explosion.
The main explosion.
Yeah. For the most part, it was fine. Like there weren't many problem users.
Hmm.
Just some people asking for the next update, but then there'd be like a couple jerks who would ask for like pre-patched ROMs or yeah.
Hmm.
Um, Also, you don't have to give them the link to your Discord server. By the way, that's optional.
Fair. It's a good learning. But overall, just like how have you felt about the reception of the project, whether it be from people who have LP'd it, people who have just played it and left comments, like you mentioned, Bloopy gave a lot of feedback early on. Like, how have you felt about the reception, especially of now, the finished and near finished versions of the project?
Feels great. Seeing a lot of people enjoy something I made, and um, that started off as all right. It's me and my friends, but we're all assholes. Yeah. No complaints for sure. Um,
Very cool.
Eventually, I guess like it'll fade into obscurity. I guess, but that's fine.
Sure. Nah, I mean, I think it depends, right? Like, I mean, definitely, you look at like the history of ROM hacking is still like pretty short. I really think like the earliest hacks that you see are from like 2009, and I think some of those are like incredibly obscure. A lot of them are also just bad, but I'm curious like how things will change in the world of ROM hacking. Like everything that we do right now feels very modern because it's the present day, but like 5 years from now, if people are still into hacking GBA, what will those hacks look like, and how will they look upon hacks from 2018 to 2020, that era of ROM hacking. So it's always curious to kind of think about that kind of stuff. But um, at the very least, it's finished, dude. I don't think it'll be that obscure. People will want to play finished
Mhm.
hacks, so that's always exciting.
Yeah, and just jumping back on like how things have changed. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's like it's kind of like how people consume Fire Emblem too,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like before everybody was like, oh yeah, you got to 2020 all your units,
Mm-hmm.
and it's only end game potential. That's the only thing that matters. Blah 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 blah. Yada yada yada. And that changed to like um, the same thing kind of happened in hacking, I
Mm-hmm.
guess.
Sure. Yeah, like the whole like the meta of what people did in Fire Emblem and what they want out of a Fire Emblem game has totally changed. Like I know from like playing Dream of Five, like there's a lot of stuff in there that like just doesn't fly today, and that like a lot of the design principles have definitely kind of fallen by the wayside in favor of other things. So it's always interesting to see like, it's going to be hard to predict like what will people not like about the heroes we deserve that will become out of fashion in like 3 or 4 years time. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how stuff like that goes down.
Yeah, it'd be like hack bad, no arenas. Like,
There are no arenas. Why is the experience formula multiplied? Why is it just Chair and his friends being assholes? I don't get it. Uh,
yeah, in like 4 years' time, like negative growth runs are gonna be all the rage, and
yeah,
like Flood was just unbeatable.
yeah. Oh god, that's funny. So, just kind of for all of the newbies out there, or people like just getting into ROM hacking, or people still in the midst of creating their projects, what's been kind of your biggest learning or just words of wisdom that you can impart to someone who's looking to try and complete a project? Because I know that that comes up a lot. It's like, how do you finish your hack? And what are some of the things that you learned that you kind of wish you knew sooner in the building process?
Um, Number one, I'm gonna talk about the B word, balance.
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about balance. Fun is more important than balance. If you try to make every character like well rounded, that'll be boring. Um, like for example, there's a in Thwood, there's a staff lock tier 2 unit that summons swords, and the swords give him experience. And if it dies, well, you can just summon another one like infinitely.
Mm-hmm.
It's ridiculously busted, but it's fun. Um, Another thing, oh, deadlines. Do not set hard deadlines for yourself. Don't say, okay, I want to have my hack finished by uh, March 2020. Instead, set shorter, more like refined, more specific deadlines. So, like, I want to have 2 maps done before Friday, or I want to have 5 songs inserted by Monday. Just short and sweet. Think like checkpoints
Mm-hmm.
instead of the finish line, just checkpoints.
Yeah, shorter sprints to get through like really small actionable things versus like it's gonna be done and it's gonna be 40 chapters and next by next month. Sure. Um, no, it's really good advice. I think it's important to remember like we're all here to do this for our fun and our own enjoyment, and it's like one thing to set deadlines for the sake of keeping yourself motivated and to keep moving forward, but it also can kind of be a double-edged sword in that it can stress you out. So it's good learnings there.
Yeah, I've been there. I burnt out. Like I almost quit a few times.
Mm-hmm.
And one time I did, and then a bunch of people gave me shit for it. It's like, fine, I'll finish it. Jesus Christ.
Hey man, we like your hack. Finish it, please.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's balance and deadlines. Those would be my two biggest takeaways.
Then I think on the balance piece, I think it's interesting, right? Like, um, with balance, I think it's easy to get really caught up in like sort of like the same thing with like, oh, we gotta have everyone have like the same growth totals. It's like, oh, the base stats need to be all the same. You know, every class needs to have like the perfect counterbalance to each other. It's like, you know, you don't want it to be like egregious, but I think some people get like really like caught up in that and don't really get anywhere just trying to make like everything super balanced. Like it's never going to be super
Mhm.
balanced. Like horses exist, you know, movement is a stat that you're not going to all keep the same. Like there are things that are just going to make some things intrinsically better than others. Um, so good to
Yeah,
strive for, but not like let yourself be hamstrung by.
yeah. Like, how do I fix armor knights? I just gave them +1 move and didn't think about it. Like, I wasn't gonna just get a headache over that. That was I had no time for that crap.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Joey, I think Joey's great. I liked using Joey, who is the archers. Henry and Tristan were both really fun to use, and they were really good. Um, yeah, there was like, you know, there are ways to make these classes good without like, you know, having to like re-engineer the entire game.
Yeah, GBAFE archers, well, especially the ones you get early on, they have the problem of not having any stats.
Yep.
So I just gave them stats, and then it worked out.
Yeah. Simple as that sometimes, right? Um, so now that you're all done, it's the hack's been out for a couple months now. Um, what's next? So I know you said before you're not going to make another ROM hack, but what else is in store in the world of ROM hacking for a reliable chair?
Um, I've been helping out a few projects here and there.
Mm-hmm.
Vision Quest, Legends of Avenir. Wow, completely spaced on that name for a second. Although it's not a ROM hack, I have been making the soundtrack for Fractured Realms.
Oh, very
Maybe like
cool.
20, 21, 22, something like that. And yeah, there's no audio limitations, right? Like you're not using
Mm-hmm.
instrument samples and stuff. It's
Sure.
just what you hear is what you get. Pretty cool. That's about it for my activity in the ROM hacking world. Um, yeah,
Very cool. Yes, it's nice when you have a skill and you enjoy it. You can contribute to so many different projects. Like music is one of those things that I feel like there's not a lot of people in the community that really do. And so, you know, I feel like you've definitely earned a reputation for yourself as like one of the premier musicians around town. So, very cool, man.
I mean, there's like what, like three people, maybe four, that make their own stuff.
Yeah.
I actually only really started after I got into ROM hacking, and yeah, so that was cool.
That's cool. It's nice when you kind of I'm sure it's not necessarily the skill set you thought you would emerge with after building a game about your friends being assholes.
Yeah, I know. Like I dabbled like back in the day, but like never really bothered to learn anything
Mm-hmm.
until now.
That's fair. That's fair. Nah.
And now we have like the ultimate edge lord song in Vision Quest. It's great.
I... Listen, kid. You don't know. You don't know the things I've seen. That's funny. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff, and the music repo is, of course, a fantastic resource that you very graciously manage, and I know that that's helped. I think a lot of people get into inserting music and trying out custom tracks, which is not something that I think previously was ever really done up until recently. So I think having those resources available has made it a lot better. So thank you for sharing all that.
Yeah, not a problem. It was at the start. It was a lot more work to manage because people were just dumping midis that they had, you know, formatted, well, S files.
Mm-hmm.
They were just dumping them left, right, and center. And it's slowed down a lot now, but I'm surprised like it hadn't been a thing up until that point.
Sure. Yeah, it's cool that we have it. But with that kind of now, like, you know, you started off on this journey by yourself, you and a program and an idea. You got a lot of other people involved. Who else should we be thanking for your project's creation? What did some of the other folks contribute?
Kark helped out early on with like some insertions. He also went through the immensely tedious process of switching the enemy battle palettes to be blue. So it was just a lot of copying and pasting. It was,
Sure.
I did not want to do that. Like this just miserable. Snaky one helped me with maps early on. He also did some ASM. There's like the daggers being independent of the weapon triangle, the multiplied experience.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what else did he make? Oh yeah, the summon XP where the summoned creature gives experience to the caster when they fight. Um, then Nick did a bunch of the player mugs. Zanryu did a few of them also. Um, Hasur, not really active in FEU. He just kind of joined out of nowhere. He made the like the super chill track that you hear in a lot of the start events.
Okay,
Um,
cool.
then all the people who contributed a character as a boss. I'm not going to bother listing them all out, but they know who they are and they're also in the credits.
Sure. They're also in the game, so you could have fun beating them up.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool, man. And so, you've alluded to a couple of other projects and things that you've been involved with. What are some other, while you're here, I'd love to hear some of your thoughts on like other projects that you're personally excited about in the community, or just anything else that you see that you're like, oh, that's cool, I want to see more of that, or that you've enjoyed personally.
Well, there's one hack that I've been following for a while now. The author, from what I understand, he looked at TLP and said, "I can do better." And yeah, it's almost done. It's called Vision Quest. You should go check it out.
Oh god. Yeah. Oh god. I mean, I hate to make it about me, but I'll make it about me right now. Yeah, that was totally my reaction. I played the hack and I'm like, man, like I could do this. I'm gonna do this and make it better. Um, Beyond me though, what else? What else have you played recently that you've liked?
Um, from a technical standpoint, Legends of Avenir is amazing. Like there's just so much custom ASM stuff going on,
Oh yeah.
and it's still being actively worked on. So kudos to that. Um, Faith and Blood. It's another one to watch for. It's I know like based on like the FE3 video from like last year,
Mm-hmm.
somebody pointed out that like a lot of people are sleeping on this one,
Yep.
and I think that's still true. Like there's a lot of potential there. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, and I completely echo your sentiment. I think Avenir has a lot of very cool hacks in it. I think its premise is very cool. I think Faith and Blood is also another one that definitely gets slept on, and it's really just well rounded overall. I mean, for me, like it's just kind of the gameplay balance of it just like very much jives with what I like, so I'm certainly biased towards it. But yeah, no, that's great. Um, and I guess lastly, just to kind of wrap up here, who do you want to give a shout out to? Who do you want to thank for you know, anything they've done to help you out?
Um, huh. I'd just like to shout out to everybody who told me to, you know, get my shit together and finish it. Uh, there was quite a few comments over in my server It's like, like you're almost at the finish line. Like, dude, it's finished. Just, finish it.
Hmm.
Yada yada. Not really good at these kind of talks. So, yeah.
There you go.
Shout out to the supporters. I
The
guess.
supporters. Yeah. Very cool, man. Well, Jared, it's been a pleasure chatting. Always good to catch up. Always cool to hear how different folks go about making their ROM hacks and their journeys, and hopefully that there are some. I think there's some really good nuggets here for people to take away as they continue to work on their own projects. So, thank you for making the time to come and chat, and I'll be sure to see you around. I'm sure you're gonna want to work on that track I just posted in my server not too long ago.
Yeah, I've had ideas for it. Yeah, and thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun, chatting.
For sure.
Good
This
times.
this is like, I mean, right? This is like being on Oprah for FE ROM hacking, right? Or at
All right,
least,
what's under everybody's chair?
yeah,
What do the people at home
It-
have under their chairs?
under the reliable chairs. Oh man, yeah. Look under your chair, and you probably need to do some sweeping. Is what I would probably suggest. Probably
You get
you get some crumbs.
oh,
Sorry. Oh, one of you gets like some cashews or something. I don't know, but
would not eat.
would not eat. Fair enough. Anyway, man, thanks again for coming on the show. My name is Pandan. I'm joined here by a reliable chair. Play this project. It's really good. I'm actually due to play the whole thing because I haven't played it in its entirety since like March of 2019. So I played an older build. I know quite a bit's changed. I mean, I recently played Chapter 2, but I know I need to do a full run of it again at some point. But looking forward to doing that, and I suggest you do the same. So thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next
Hold
time.
on. Hold on, very important.
Very important.
Hack bad, Roy sucks. Hack bad.
Hack
We've come full circle. At the very beginning of this, when I talked about Smash Bros, I said more on him later.
More on him later. It's full circle. This is
There you go.
there's some very Thwad meta humor going on in the interview. I love it. That's hilarious. Do you really just hate Roy now?
I mean, I feel like I have to go back and play FE6 again, but like you guys are doing the Iron Man,
Mm-hmm.
so like I'm kind of like getting it through that, and it's pretty much how I remember it. Like Roy is just kind of tagging along with everybody and gets a kill once every blue moon.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's about it.
that's
And
about
every
it.
map is a fucking seed map.
Every map is a Seas map. Gotta love it. Good stuff, man. All right. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Be safe. And remember, everyone, if you love someone, tell them. See you then.